Hello, everybody, and welcome back to One Hub Racing. Colin and I are here for the 10th episode of the Stewards Room, and Cole, only one more to go after this. I'm not sure whether we'll do one after the final round, but these have been enjoyable, and we hope they've been informative.
Well, I think this is, to be honest, for this new season, this has been my favourite edition. I think it's really, really good. And it explains the stewards' decisions a bit better. I don't know any other league out there, Nick, who does this.
Yeah, and it's really important for us that, drivers, if they're going to get annoyed, they might get annoyed at, poor attendances or poor organisation or this or that. But also, they get annoyed at stewarding decisions. Now, inevitably, it doesn't matter what rules or how consistent you are, some drivers will always get annoyed because they'll always think they're not in the wrong, which as drivers ourselves we've probably been guilty of, Cole. But it's really important that we can try and explain it the best we can to just try and help ease those concerns, which we're going to do tonight as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's to explain our thought process when we look at incidents as well. And I've said this before, we don't just spend a couple of minutes looking at it and go, yep, see you later, that's done. We delve into it. We look at it in as much detail as we can. We discuss it with each other as well. One thing that Nick's mentioned before is that we actually put our views in before seeing anyone else's views. So that we're not even got a hint of bias from somebody else's viewpoint. It's purely your view at that point, and then we'll discuss any differences then. And to be fair, 99% of the time, Nick, there isn't any. We all 99 times out of 100 come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, I was going to say it's nice when you all put it in you all put your views in the chat, and then suddenly you look at it and everyone else thinks the same of you. It makes you go, yeah, we came to the right decision there. So, looking forward to getting into this one because big ramifications, some of the incidents this week. But Austin, Cole, tricky conditions, changeable conditions, the last of four that we'll be having this season due to the league adaptive weather system. But nevertheless, really tricky around Austin, and drivers had to manage the changeable conditions as well.
Yeah, it was quite difficult. It was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, I got to be honest. And I had a great battle with quite a few drivers, Arnaud and Owen in particular. It might have been for the lower level of the points, but it was still very exciting and a lot of fun. But very, very difficult, Nick, in those changeable conditions.
Alrighty, well, let's dive in. So there were four incidents we're going to look at. All are actually from the P2 tier, and three of them are between Popper and Morgan, both of who are fighting for the P2 championship. Came into this race, I believe, tied on points. Could be wrong on that one. But ultimately, Cole, there's only a few races left in the season, and these sorts of incidents and our decisions can affect the outcome of the championship. So, we treat it exactly the same, whether it's for 14th or 15th place or the last lap of the last race of the season for the championship between the top two. Cole, it doesn't matter.
No, exactly. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference whether this is for 15th and 16th or whether this is for the win. We look at the incidents in the same way and treat them the same as well. And that's the only fair way of doing it. And this is why I think the stewarding is, I know I'm a bit biased, but is a success.
Now, the incident you're seeing on screen is Morgan's failed pit entry, and every other driver is perfectly entitled to report drivers who aren't taking the pit lane, aren't going in between the lines correctly. We often saw it, Cole, at places like France, where drivers, cut properly to try and gain an advantage, and they were penalised, rightly so. But this one, Cole, talk us through it. Difficult conditions. Mike, I'm seeing Mikey reading in the chat. Morgan overshoots it, has to make a slide correction as he gets back onto the track, and ultimately loses time from this, and the game chose not to penalise him.
Yeah, so this wasn't a case of Morgan backing out and going, oh, actually, I don't want to go in the pit lane. He planned to go in the pit lane, and unfortunately overshot it. Was very, very lucky not to connect with that inside barrier. Just about gets it back on track. And then you could see Papa there going past him. You could see that Morgan kept his wheel in a straight line, managed to come out of the pit lane without any damage, and so the stewards just thought that was a simple racing incident. He didn't gain anything by it. If anything, he probably lost by it, because he might have got an undercut if he managed to actually go in the pit lane when he planned to.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that what we consider a drivable surface is that runoff tarmac area on the right of the track. It's not obviously gravel or grass. If it was, then it would be looked at that Morgan squeezed Popper to stop him from completing the overtake on the outside. Sorry, but ultimately that part of the track is used in qualifying and the race.
Yeah, exactly. So it was deemed part of the track as well. But even so, it might not have ended up in a penalty anyway, because Morgan keeps his wheels straight, So he's come out of the pit lane broad sideways. Pit lane, sort of. Last corner. But does manage to keep the car in a straight line, and then obviously doesn't deviate from his line.
Alrighty, well, the next one on lap 24, and of course Jess is in our ear bringing up everything that you see on screen, so big thanks to her. And this was just a little tangle. Cole, there wasn't anything that, time lost or position gained or time gained or anything like that. These sorts of contacts will always happen within racing. So around the outside, Morgan's trying a little bit of contact there on the exit. Morgan risking damaging his wing more than anything, and then Cole, the contact that was reported is just here.
Yes, very minor contact. Morgan doesn't gain by it. It does look like that Morgan panics a bit as well, and then lifts off straight away. So he doesn't gain an advantage by it anyway. And it's just things like that always happen in racing.
So you're going to see it from Morgan's POV. Now, Colin, these two had a great battle. The last stint of this race was mega. This is exactly what we want to see when I race. Just giving you enough room there. Little tap on the rear. As I said, danger to losing the ring. And Morgan's trying to line up an overtake here. Thinks there's going to be a gap. The gap closes. He wasn't 50% alongside, but ultimately doesn't gain anything from it. No overtake is done, and they continue on racing hard.
Yeah, now if, for example, by here where this contact was made, that Rich went in the wall and then did a half spin and Morgan gained, or Papa, sorry, if Morgan gained by that, by overtaking him, that would have been a penalty. But he backs out of it. He doesn't gain an advantage by it, and it's just one of those things where, it happens in racing. You do get a bit of contact.
Yeah, as much as obviously, all drivers and the stewards want contact avoided, it's inevitable that there is going to be some moments. Drivers are under such pressure and racing at such high speeds, Cole, that the smallest movements and things like that can result in a bit of contact. As we saw here, the gap was there, the gap closed, and no advantage gained by the contact. But the next one, Cole, eventually was on the last lap, and it decided the winner of the race. As I said, I think they headed into this race tied on points. So these sorts of moves and things like that. And I think Popper had every right to bring this to the steward's office. Unfortunately, we don't have Popper's view on it anymore. But we're going to try and explain this one as clearly as possible for everyone, because, we do understand the ramifications in terms of the championship.
Yeah, exactly that. So you'll see now, we're coming into the end of the sector. It's the last lap. Now, I actually foresaw this. We were in the chat, and I actually said, I know where Morgan's going to attack Papa. I'm wondering whether anyone in the chat will ever other than Boogs, obviously, can guess where he's going to have a go. So you can see now he's lining him up. This is pre-planned. Look, there he goes down the inside. Look, he's clearly alongside. In fact, he was ahead at the natural turn-in point. Papa does turn in a little earlier than normal to try and cover him, but unfortunately it's too late, and Morgan is through, and it was a lovely manoeuvre.
Jess, I don't know. I think Jess is going to get Morgan's POV, but the reason that this wasn't a penalty, Cole, more than anything, was that the 50% rule, and I'm going to read it to you. If overtaking on the inside, the overtaking driver must be 50% alongside at the point the defending driver turns into the corner at the natural racing line. Those last five words were added to this rule for this season, at the natural racing line.
Now, so if you look here, the natural racing line is not where Papa is. The natural racing line is a bit further to the right, and you'll see now, if Jess can just nudge it forward just a couple of, I would say seconds, but that's maybe half a second. There we go. Yeah. You can see where the racing line was, and Papa is turning in earlier than the natural racing line. So he's probably realised, oh hell, he's going to go down the inside here. Tries to close the door, but unfortunately it's too late. It's a perfectly executed manoeuvre by Morgan. It's a tremendously gutsy manoeuvre. It could have gone wrong, it could have been, it could have gone really pear-shaped, but he executed it to perfection. And the stewards rightly came to race an incident and no further action.
Yeah, the rule goes on, the 50% rule goes on to say the defending driver cannot change line from the point of the braking zone to their turning, cannot take a non-traditional line into the corner to negate the above 50% rule. So, I'm really proud of this rule, Cole, because I feel the wording of it helps us define what is legal and not legal so much better than in previous seasons. And ultimately, this move was legal. All the stewards agreed. It wasn't even an incident that was discussed. When all the stewards put their views in, it was put down to, it was actually, I think most of the stewards commented on what a great move it was.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it decided the race win. And, I think Papa obviously was a little bit frustrated by the decision, but, I think the rules in terms of the 50% rule were quite clear here. And, if you're turning in slightly earlier than the natural racing line, Cole, you can't then claim on the 50% rule, if you're doing that. So, and Papa's, he's a fantastic driver. And whichever one of these two drivers, Cole, win the Drivers' Championship, it's going to be massively deserved.
Yes, 100%. Regardless of either one, one of those two's going to win it. And whoever wins it is going to, without a shadow of a doubt, thoroughly deserve it. And, when you get into the nitty-gritty of a title, these things happen. Drivers are looking for every advantage. And, they're going to feel more hard done by. Now, I'm almost certain that if that overtake happened round 3 on lap 8, it would have been a nothing incident. But I don't blame Papa at all. When you're fighting for championships, you want every point that's available to you, especially at this late stage, when there's only a few points and a few races left.
And we won't go into too much details, but we've seen before in many seasons that the mind games that can be played between championship rivals, gets really hot towards the end of the season. Jono, a former champion in One Hub, they say that I think it was season 6, Cole, well before your and Jess's time, but you'll have to ask Chris and Lukey. But they say that Jono actually won the championship that season off the track in the pre-race interviews and post-race interviews, because he got under his rival was Temp Fear. He got under his skin so much, and Jono was never rude, so it was just how he cleverly answered questions and and things like that ultimately, made Temp Fear overdrive and stop messing up qualifying laps and things like that. So it's really interesting that, all this off-track stuff can have a big role to play in the outcome of the championship.
Yeah, exactly that. And it just makes me even more excited for Sunday to watch Morgan and Papa, no doubt, be at it again, fighting for the win. It's going to be such an exciting end to the season. And this one, in one hub terms, this is 2021. It's that level of excitement and drama. The difference is Massey's not in charge, so we're not going to randomly change the rules with a couple of laps to go.
Let's not get into that, Cole. We'll be here all night.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to jump on to the other Aston Martin of Mikey's pen removal. And the only reason I selected this week, Cole, is because we've shown penalty removals for if the game's incorrectly awarded it or it's awarded to by accident. But this one is interesting because it's to do with slight contact, and then Mikey goes off track and the game gives him a penalty. Now, if you're going off track to avoid a collision or as a result of collision and you're not making any time game, the stewards will usually view it that there is no need to keep that warning. And on this occasion, you're about to see it on your screen now.
Yes. So what you'll notice, you'll actually notice that Mikey goes and makes it 3 wide at one stage. So he was never going to get much space, to be honest, because there's just physically not enough room. But you can see there we're under the wet conditions. Everyone's slide cam manager's just about to keep it in a straight line, and we're heading now down, and so that's the first warning. Now that is not contestable, and he didn't try to contest that either, to be fair. That is just a corner cutting penalty, but this is where the incident is now coming up, Nick.
Yep. So we're just gonna wait for it, and you can see it's so tricky in these early stages where a lot of drivers chose to run the intermediate tires rather than the recommended full wets because they knew the weather was drying up. So you can see here a little bit of contact, goes wide, loses time, and unfairly he's given. Actually, to point out as well, fair play to Mikey, as he rejoined there, he saw the red arrow, left just enough room on the inside to avoid contact with whichever car that was, Catherine, I think. So yeah, stewards removed it, easy peasy.
Yeah, he certainly didn't gain advantage by it. He lost by it, as you can see. But obviously, he was never going to be able to overtake them, but he shouldn't have got a warning as well, So here's the example of a race director that Mikey submitted to the stewards, and he scrolls all the way down. So he did it exactly how you're supposed to. Makes life a lot easier for us. We had a good laugh over it, actually, because he had to re-upload it because it went a bit funny and it wasn't. Mikey will say, I think Mikey will be in the chat now, where the quality was
always in the chat.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. So bye, Jay. So the stewards removed that warning. Therefore, because he showed all of his race director, we could see that would then remove 3 seconds from his total time.
Alrighty, well, let's jump on to some good examples, and we really need all drivers to stop submitting their highlights so that I can watch and find some good examples, because there wasn't any submitted this week, so I've only got a couple to show you, both involving Owen, actually, Cole. Now, the first one, and in fact, actually, Cole, both involving us. So that's always good. So I think the first one we're going to see is the whole of Owen's clip, which is a battle with you, Cole. One where he went for a move and got the job done. One where you went for a move and ultimately he was able to defend.
Yeah, this was a really good, fun battle with myself and Owen. We were having a good chat afterwards about it as well. And you could see, look, bang, down the inside.
Same move as Morgan that Morgan made on Popper.
And absolutely perfectly executed. So there's me down the inside. Now I actually run deep, Luxy, just about leave room for Owen. Owen goes right round the outside. I'm still on the inside, but you can see that he's leaving enough room. So then I come down the inside again, look. But importantly, leave a bit of a gap on the exit because I know that I'm going to cut him up. So that was a lot of fun and really enjoyed that, I got to be honest.
Yeah, I think what was really the one that impressed me the most was the one in the dry, actually, Cole, because Owen went to the outside, left you the room on the inside, so he anticipated you making that move, and then focused on his corner exit, and ultimately that superior corner exit was what enabled him to keep the position, which was obviously really good. I think Jess is going to bring it up now again. Yeah, so it's just coming up. So Owen's setting the move up now. He knows he's not going to be able to... Interestingly, most drivers would probably keep on the inside at this point, Cole. But Owen chose to go back to the outside, left you just enough room, then lifts off the brake slightly to carry a bit more speed, and then gets the wider exit early on the throttle. Can get the traction better because obviously he's facing in a straight line, whereas you're coming at a tighter angle, and keeps the position. So great racing there. And I think Jess is going to bring him up on some racing him and I had, Cole, that I wasn't necessarily too happy with at the time, but watching it back 5-6 days later, you just think it's good hard racing. So it gets the job done on the inside of the last corner. We make a little bit of contact, which ultimately loses, or potentially loses a position to Arnold. And then down the inside, kind of just leaves the door open for me. So went back, just about give him enough room on the outside there. Obviously you can use the curb around this track, again just giving him enough room on the inside, Cole. Here we make a bit of contact. I think there's question as to whether he was 50% alongside, and should I have given him a bit more room, but it's a very strange place to go side by side, that corner. I don't know if Jess can skip ahead back to where we were.
Just see the pink front wing of Arnard appearing now and again. Yeah, that's so a brave call to make a move down there. But
then he lets me through. So
yeah,
it possibly looked like maybe he wasn't. The fact that he let me through after makes me think that maybe he wasn't 50%. Again, we don't have his view. And then here sends it down the inside. I was a bit unhappy with this, but I think you said, Cole, that in these sorts of conditions, it's difficult, and ultimately, job done.
Yeah, that was, I got to be honest, that's one of my favourite battles of the season. Because what that doesn't show you, actually, is that us two overtaking each other went on for lap after lap after lap after lap. Unfortunately for Owen, he got a time penalty, which meant that I was able to jump him at the end. And then I got a penalty, I think. But it was a really good, fun battle. And it shows that, you can get these battles in the wet as well as the dry, as long as you got two drivers who, have got a bit of common sense and a bit of awareness.
Definitely. Well, this week we're heading to Mexico on Sunday. Of course, you've got the earlier start times, 3 o'clock for the P3 tier, 4:30 for the P2 tier, and 6 o'clock for the P1 tier. Remember that the UK changes from British summertime back to GMT, so we fall back an hour. So when it hits 2 o'clock, we fall back to 1 o'clock in the UK. But we'll be reminding all the drivers on race day exactly how many hours to the race, just so there's no confusion. With that, Colt, Mexico, a really difficult track. Obviously, it's high up in the sky. Traction is tricky. The curbs are tricky. Overheating tires. The pit entry line is tricky. The DRS lines are faded. It's a track that is just hard, I think, Cole.
Well, the only bit I've got the hang of at the minute is the straights. That's about it, to be honest. It's a very, very tricky track. I I think I was thinking about it actually before the stream started, and I wonder whether the F1 game has simulated the fact that the air is so thin, and so you're not getting that level of downforce. So it's 25% thinner than at sea level, this Mexican circuit. So this is why you get very, very high top speed despite having very high levels of downforce as well, because the aerodynamics are not as efficient. So I think that's probably having an effect, and it's making life very, very difficult. So it's going to be a very interesting race, Nick. I think it's going to be a race of attrition. I think he who could stay out of trouble.
Yeah, long race, 36 laps, long pit straight. Obviously, a couple of DRS zones following through that middle section can be tricky. And then you got the stadium section, which I think is nice for the fans, not so nice to drive through, in my opinion. But obviously that leads on to the main straight. So, yeah, look forward to having everyone join us on Sunday. As I said, earlier start times because the Mexican Grand Prix in real life is taking place later on in the evening. And of course, we don't want our drivers or commentators or anyone watching to miss that. So thanks to Jess in our ear, who's been providing all the footage. Cole, always thanks to you for joining me. And thanks to our sponsor, SimGrid, Vespertine, Next Level Racing, Sim Racing Setups, and Pure Sim Gear. We couldn't offer what we offer here at One Hub Racing without you. And of course, big thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat. And we hope that what we've been able to explain tonight has gone some way to giving a further in-depth into how the rules were applied.
Yes, and just before we go, a bit of a shout out to one of the fellow stewards, Mark, or Axlock, as you guys will know him. So he helped write the stewards report for me this week, as I was very, very busy in work with an aerospace audit. So I was absolutely flat out. So big thanks to Mark for that, and a big thanks to all the stewards, really. We get on really, really well. We work well together, and I genuinely believe that we come to the right decisions. So yeah, big thanks to everyone.
All right, thank you guys. Good night, and best of luck on Sunday.